I witnessed a hit and run and became the driver in their story. I was 3 blocks from home on a quiet Sunday morning when I saw the dark blue Lexus slam into the cyclist at the intersection. Metal met bone with a sickening crunch, and the car didn't even slow down. It just accelerated north on Fletcher Avenue, leaving the victim sprawled across the asphalt with his mangled bicycle spinning beside him. I dropped my grocery bags and sprinted toward him, already pulling out my phone to dial 911. My hands shook as I knelt beside him, checking for a pulse. He was breathing, barely, blood pooling beneath his head on the pavement. The 911 operator's voice cut through my panic as I described everything. Dark blue Lexus, newer model, male driver, headed north. I kept pressure on the wound like she instructed, watching this stranger's life hang by a thread. Other people started gathering, phones out, some filming, others just staring. His eyes fluttered open once, confused and terrified, before closing again. When the ambulance arrived 6 minutes later, paramedics took over with practiced efficiency. A police officer approached as they loaded the cyclist onto a stretcher. Officer Daniels, middle-aged with tired eyes, asked if I'd witnessed what happened. I explained everything while it was still fresh. The car, the driver's profile, the direction they fled. He thanked me for staying, called me a good Samaritan, said a detective would probably follow up. Standard procedure for witness statements. I walked home feeling shaken, but relieved I'd been there to help. My apartment felt too quiet. I couldn't stop seeing the cyclist's body hitting the pavement, couldn't stop hearing that terrible sound. I called my sister that afternoon and told her what happened. She said I did the right thing, but the image stayed with me. That night, I barely slept. Monday morning, Detective Laura Finch called. Professional, almost warm. She needed me to come downtown for a formal statement. Just helping close the case, she said. I took off work that afternoon and drove to the precinct. The building smelled like stale coffee and antiseptic. She led me to a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and a one-way mirror. The interview started normally. She asked me to walk through everything, starting from when I left my apartment. I described the car, the impact, staying with the victim. She took notes, nodding along. Then she asked what kind of car I drove. A silver Nissan, I said. Her expression shifted. Why? She mentioned another witness had seen a dark blue sedan fleeing the scene. The driver matched my general description. Male, late 20s, brown hair, dark jacket. I laughed nervously. There's confusion, I said. I was walking. I'm the one who called 911. She asked if anyone saw me leave my apartment that morning. No, I lived alone. Would I provide fingerprints and DNA to exclude myself? The word voluntary sounded less than voluntary. That's when everything changed. She opened a folder and slid a photograph across the table. Traffic camera footage from Fletcher and Morrison. Timestamp 8:47 a.m., the exact moment of collision. The image showed the dark blue Lexus running the red light. Through the windshield, impossibly, was my face. Not someone similar. My actual face, clear and unmistakable. Same hairline, same nose, same features. I stared at it, my brain refusing to process. That's not me, I said weakly. Detective Finch leaned back, arms crossed. The timestamp places you at the scene during impact. You called 911 3 minutes later from the same intersection. You had detailed knowledge of the vehicle. How do you explain that? I shook my head, voice rising. I was walking, not driving. I've never seen that car. She asked if I owned a dark jacket. Yes, but half the city does. Did I know the victim? No, never saw him before. Why would I call 911 if I was the driver? She tilted her head. Panic, she said. Guilt. Trying to control the narrative by inserting yourself as a witness. It happens. I asked to see full video footage. She said the camera only captured stills every few seconds. This was the clearest frame. Who owns the Lexus? Still tracing registration, she said. Plates were obscured. My hands started sweating. Check my car for damage, I said. My silver Nissan. She said they would, but I'd had 2 days to repair anything. Every defense I offered became evidence against me. She asked if I'd been drinking Sunday morning. No. Any drugs? No. History of road rage? Just a speeding ticket 2 years ago. She wrote it down like it mattered. I asked if I needed a lawyer. She said I wasn't under arrest, free to leave any time, but cooperation would help clear my name. The way she said it made leaving feel like confession. The interview dragged on for 2 more hours. Same questions, different angles, searching for inconsistencies. What time did I leave my apartment? What route to the store? Why that store? Did I see the cyclist before impact or only after? Every answer felt like a trap. Finally, she let me go, but said not to leave town. The victim, she added, was critical with traumatic brain injury. If he died, This became manslaughter. I walked out, barely processing what happened. I was a witness. I'd helped. Now I was a suspect. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. That night, I searched my bank statements for proof of where I'd been. I'd paid cash at the store. No digital trail. No receipt. I called my sister and tried to explain. Long silence. "Do you need bail money?" she asked. "I'm not arrested," I said. "Yet," she replied. I didn't sleep. That photo haunted me. My face where it couldn't be. Wednesday morning, 2 officers arrived with a search warrant. Polite but thorough. They photographed my silver Nissan from every angle, checking for damage, taking paint samples. Inside my apartment, they bagged my dark jacket, shoes, phone, anything connecting me to the scene. I watched them catalog my life, feeling violated. One officer asked if I'd recently cleaned my car. "I'd washed it Monday," I said, before this started, before I knew I was a suspect. He exchanged glances with his partner and made a note. That innocent act now looked like destroying evidence. After they left, I found a criminal defense attorney online, Gregory Vaughn. His consultation was $300. I paid immediately. When I explained everything, he was quiet. Then he asked a question that stopped my heart. "Do you have a twin? A brother? Anyone who looks exactly like you?" "No," I said. "Only child. Father died when I was 12. He told me not to speak to police again without him present. The traffic camera photo was circumstantial, but combined with my presence at the scene and no alibi, it built a compelling case. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about his question. I pulled up the photo again and studied it. My face, but something felt wrong. I couldn't articulate what, just wrongness. I searched for information on the victim. David Brennan, 34, software engineer, father of 2, avid cyclist, community volunteer. His wife begged for witnesses to come forward. I had come forward. Now I was being destroyed for it. Thursday morning, someone leaked my name to the press. Local man questioned in Fletcher Avenue hit and run. They used my photo from social media. The comments were immediate and vicious. "He looks guilty. Lock him up. How can people be so evil?" My phone exploded with unknown numbers. I turned it off. Friday afternoon, my boss called me in. Corporate saw the news. They were placing me on administrative leave pending investigation. "Not personal," he said. "Protecting company reputation." I cleaned out my desk while colleagues pretended not to stare. In the parking lot, my car was vandalized. Killer spray painted in red across the hood. Windshield smashed. I filed a police report. The responding officer's expression said, "I deserved it." My sister called that evening, voice tight. Someone posted my address online. Threats on social media. People saying they knew where I lived. She begged me to stay with her. I refused. Running looked guilty. That night, someone threw a brick through my window. Note attached, "Justice is coming." I sat in the dark with a baseball bat, jumping at every sound. Saturday morning, Gregory called. The prosecutor was building a case. Vehicular assault with intent to flee. They had the photo, my presence at the scene, and now a witness who saw me driving a dark blue car that morning. Who? An elderly man named Mr. Kowalski. Lived 2 blocks from the intersection. He'd given a statement seeing me get into a dark blue sedan around 8:30 Sunday, looking frantic and hurried. This changed everything, Gregory said. 1 piece of evidence could be questioned. 2 created a pattern. 3 built a prosecution case. The preliminary hearing was Wednesday. 4 days to prepare for a proceeding that could destroy my life. Gregory drilled me for hours. Stick to facts. Don't embellish. Don't get emotional. Don't explain the photo. Let me handle narrative. The courtroom was small and cold. David Brennan's wife sat front row, face hollow with grief and rage. When I entered, she stared with pure hatred. I had to look away. Prosecutor Denise Callahan presented evidence methodically. The traffic camera photo blown up on screen. My 911 call, framed as suspicious, not heroic. Why would an innocent witness have such detailed vehicle knowledge unless he was the driver controlling the investigation? Mr. Kowalski took the stand. Elderly, white-haired, trustworthy appearance. He testified he'd been walking his dog Sunday morning and saw me getting into a dark blue Lexus on Fletcher Avenue around 8:30. I seemed agitated, looking around nervously. Gregory cross-examined, pointing out he couldn't be absolutely certain it was me, just someone resembling me. Mr. Kowalski insisted it was definitely me. He'd seen my face clearly. After the news coverage, he was certain. The judge reviewed evidence and found probable cause. I was bound over for trial. Vehicular assault and leaving the scene. If David Brennan died, upgraded to manslaughter. I walked into a mob of reporters and cameras. Gregory shielded me, but someone threw something that hit my shoulder. Security intervened. The message was clear. The public had convicted me. That weekend I stayed inside, blinds drawn. My sister came despite protests, refusing to leave me alone. She'd taken time off, terrified I'd do something desperate. I wasn't suicidal, just hollow. Everything was collapsing because I'd tried to help. Monday morning, my sister suggested hiring a private investigator. Gregory mentioned the same, warning it would be expensive. I had $30,000 in savings for a house down payment. That dream was dead. I hired Rachel DuPont, ex-police with a reputation for thoroughness. She started pulling records on every dark blue Lexus registered in the county, 43 vehicles. She'd check each for accident damage, recent repairs, anything suspicious. While Rachel worked, I dug into my past, trying to understand who could frame me and why. That photo haunted me. My face, but impossible. I thought about my father, dead 20 years. Affairs? Secret children? I called my mother in Florida and asked directly. She was horrified. "Your father was faithful his entire life," she said. "No secret siblings. What's happened to you?" I couldn't explain. I asked about extended family, cousins resembling me. She listed a few. I found their photos online. No resemblance. I spent hours searching for my doppelganger online, scrolling faces, looking for myself in strangers. Nothing. Wednesday morning, Rachel called with a lead. She'd found a dark blue Lexus registered to Ethan Cross, serviced for front-end damage Monday, day after the hit and run. Repair records showed significant work to bumper, hood, headlight. Ethan told the mechanic he'd hit a deer over the weekend. Rachel was tracking him down. She called back 2 hours later, voice urgent. "I need you to sit down," she said. She'd found Ethan Cross's driver's license photo, sending it now. The image loaded slowly. When it appeared, I felt punched. Ethan Cross looked exactly like me, not similar, identical. Same face shape, eyes, hair color and style. We could be twins. How is this possible? I asked. Rachel didn't know, but was digging deeper. Ethan was 31, unmarried, finance worker, no criminal record, no violations, completely clean on paper. But Rachel found something else. Ethan had been drowning in debt, nearly $200,000 from gambling losses, maxed credit cards, loan sharks circling. Then 3 days after the hit and run, a large deposit appeared in his account, $75,000 from an offshore account. I stared at the evidence, mind racing. This was proof. Someone else drove that Lexus, someone who looked exactly like me. But Rachel's expression stayed troubled. "There's a problem," she said. Ethan reported his car stolen Monday morning, same day he brought it for repairs. Filed a police report, claiming someone took it Sunday night and returned it damaged. The report was on file, but unpursued since the vehicle was recovered. Perfect cover story. He could claim someone else drove his car during the hit and run, someone who happened to look identical to him, and if that someone was me, even better. But the deposit, I said, $75,000. Where from? Rachel traced it to a shell corporation, nearly impossible to penetrate. But she found one connection. The Shell Corporation had ties to Gibson and Associates, a law firm specializing in personal injury. My stomach dropped. I'd seen that name in news coverage. David Brennan's wife hired Gibson and Associates for a wrongful death lawsuit. Not against me specifically yet, but whoever was found responsible. They'd announced it publicly 2 days after David died, promising maximum damages. Rachel explained her theory methodically. Someone at that firm needed a clear defendant for their lawsuit. Someone with assets to seize, reputation to destroy, someone who'd settle rather than fight. But I couldn't be random. There had to be a reason they chose me. Rachel investigated that angle too. What she found made me sick. David Brennan and I had a connection I'd completely forgotten. 5 years ago, we both applied for the same senior position at Vertex Solutions. He got the job. I was runner-up, rejected after final interviews. Such a minor thing, so long ago I'd barely remembered until Rachel showed me records. But someone remembered. Rachel pulled up the hiring manager's name from Vertex, Gregory Brennan, David's older brother. He'd left Vertex 3 years ago, now worked as independent consultant. Rachel pulled his phone records through contacts. In 3 weeks before the hit and run, Gregory made dozens of calls to Gibson and Associates. And he'd met with Ethan Cross twice, once at a coffee shop downtown, once at Ethan's apartment. The picture was forming, too monstrous to accept. Rachel laid it out. She believed Gregory orchestrated everything. He found Ethan, someone looking exactly like me, and paid him to cause an accident that would seriously injure or kill David, then ensure I took the fall, criminally and civilly. But why would someone want their own brother dead? Rachel investigated Gregory's finances too. He was drowning in debt, over $1 million from failed investments and brutal divorce. His ex-wife took everything. He faced bankruptcy. David had a $2 million life insurance policy. Gregory was listed as secondary beneficiary after David's wife. If David's wife collected massive wrongful death settlement against me, Gregory would be positioned to help manage that money as family. He could siphon what he needed. It was elaborate, almost too elaborate, but every piece Rachel found supported it. The doctored traffic camera photo, the paid witness Mr. Kowalski, who received $5,000 from an account linked to Gregory 3 days before preliminary hearing, the Shell Corporation funding, all traced back to Gregory Brennan, but proving it in court would be nearly impossible. We had circumstantial evidence, suspicious transactions, coincidental connections, nothing definitive, nothing overriding that traffic camera photo showing my face. Gregory Vaughn arranged an emergency meeting with the prosecutor's office. We needed to present everything Rachel found before trial started. The meeting was Thursday afternoon in a conference room at the DA's office. Denise Callahan sat across from us, arms crossed, skeptical before we began. Gregory laid out evidence piece by piece, repair records for Ethan's vehicle, the suspicious $75,000 deposit, connection between Gregory Brennan and Gibson and Associates, payment to witness Kowalski, the stolen car report as cover. Denise listened without interrupting, expression unreadable. When Gregory finished, she asked one question. "Can you prove Ethan Cross was driving at the moment of impact?" Gregory admitted we couldn't. The camera showed my face, not Ethan's. Unless we proved the image was doctored or explained how two unrelated people looked identical, physical evidence still pointed to me. Denise said she'd investigate our claims, but wouldn't drop charges based on speculation and conspiracy theories. We left, with nothing accomplished. That night, I couldn't stop staring at the traffic camera photo. Something bothered me beyond the obvious. I pulled it up and studied every pixel, shadow, detail, the angle, lighting, timestamp. Then I noticed something in the windshield reflection. Behind the camera, in the glass, a building with distinctive feature, brick facade with bright green awning. I'd walked past that intersection hundreds of times. I knew every building, every storefront. There was no green awning anywhere near that camera. I called Rachel immediately, hands shaking. She arrived within 30 minutes and examined the photo herself. She'd worked with forensic image analysts during police work. She had contacts specializing in digital manipulation and metadata analysis. She sent the image to one that night requesting emergency analysis. Friday morning, her contact called back. The photo had been altered, expertly, subtly, but definitely manipulated. Someone took the original image of Ethan driving and superimposed my face over his using sophisticated software. The metadata was tampered with too, made to appear legitimate to casual inspection. Under deep forensic analysis, the manipulation was clear. Her contact could testify in court, provide technical evidence the photo was fake. Gregory Vaughn filed emergency motion for new hearing. We presented forensic analysis to Judge Marion Caldwell, along with all Rachel's evidence about Gregory Brennan, Ethan Cross, and the conspiracy. Denise Callahan looked stunned reviewing the forensic report. She requested time to conduct her own analysis and open investigation into Gregory Brennan's involvement. Judge Caldwell granted 3-week continuance and modified my bail, releasing me on own recognizance given new evidence casting doubt on prosecution's case. Walking out of that courthouse, I could breathe for the first time in weeks. The nightmare wasn't over, but there was hope. Media coverage shifted slightly. Some outlets questioned whether I'd been wrongly accused. Others doubled down, suggesting forensic evidence was manufactured by expensive lawyers. David Brennan's wife released a statement saying she just wanted truth, whoever it implicated. That weekend, Gregory Brennan disappeared. Police went to his apartment Friday evening and found it empty. He'd cleared bank accounts, packed belongings, vanished. An APB was issued, but he had a head start. Ethan Cross was picked up Monday morning trying to board a flight to Mexico. In his possession, police found a laptop containing the original, unaltered traffic camera photo. It showed his face clearly behind the wheel at moment of impact. Under interrogation, Ethan fell apart. He'd been offered $200,000 by Gregory to cause a fatal accident. The victim was predetermined, Gregory's own brother David. Ethan was desperate, drowning in gambling debt with loan sharks threatening violence. Gregory spent months planning every detail. He'd studied David's cycling routes, schedule, habits. He found Ethan through facial recognition search, someone looking enough like me to be convincing. He gained access to city's traffic camera system through corrupt contact in IT department. The plan was perfect, except one variable they couldn't control: me. I happened to be walking near that intersection at exact moment of collision. When I called 911 and stayed with David, Gregory panicked initially, but then realized my presence made everything easier. I was perfect scapegoat, already at scene with no alibi, bearing uncanny resemblance to Ethan. All Gregory had to do was manipulate the photo and pay off a witness to place me in a car that morning. Ethan provided detailed testimony against Gregory in exchange for reduced sentence. He gave police everything: recordings of meetings, text messages, financial records showing payments. But then Ethan said something during interrogation that made Detective Finch call me immediately. "There's something else," she said. "Something you need to know. We need you to come to the station right now." I arrived within an hour, Rachel and Gregory with me. Detective Finch led us to the same interview room where this nightmare had started. She opened a file and slid a document across the table: DNA results. When they'd processed the evidence from my apartment, they'd run standard analysis. The results showed something impossible, something that explained everything and nothing simultaneously. I wasn't an only child. The DNA indicated I had a sibling, a twin specifically. The genetic markers were unmistakable. Ethan Cross wasn't just someone who looked like me. He was my identical twin brother. I stared at the results, my entire understanding of reality fracturing. "That's impossible," I said. "My mother would have told me." Detective Finch pulled out another file, hospital records from 32 years ago. My mother had given birth to twins, but one had been taken by Child Protective Services immediately after birth due to my mother's drug use at the time. She'd been high during delivery, and the hospital had reported it. My father had been deployed overseas with the military. By the time he returned and my mother got clean, the adoption had been finalized. Closed adoption. Records sealed. My parents had decided never to tell me, to pretend it never happened, to protect me from the trauma of knowing I had a brother out there somewhere. Ethan had found out about me 3 years ago through one of those DNA ancestry websites. He'd been searching for his biological family his entire life. When he discovered he had an identical twin, he'd become obsessed. He'd followed my life from a distance, learning everything about me: where I lived, where I worked, what I looked like now. The resemblance wasn't coincidental. It was genetic destiny. But why would he agree to frame me? Detective Finch explained that part. Ethan had contacted me 2 years ago, sent me an email explaining who he was, asking to meet. I'd never received it because it had gone to my spam folder. When I never responded, Ethan had tried calling, leaving messages. I'd changed my number around that time and never got them. Ethan had interpreted my silence as rejection. He'd spent his whole life in foster care, bouncing between homes, never feeling wanted. Then he'd found his twin brother, his only blood relative who might understand him, and I'd seemingly ignored him. The rejection had festered into resentment. When Gregory Brennan had approached him with the plan, offering money and a chance to destroy the brother who'd abandoned him, Ethan had agreed. It wasn't just about the money. It was about making me suffer the way he'd suffered, making me feel what it was like to lose everything, to be alone and scared and blamed for things beyond my control. The cruelty had a purpose. It was revenge for a rejection I'd never knowingly committed. I sat there trying to process it all. I had a twin brother. He'd tried to reach out. I'd accidentally ignored him. He'd helped frame me for vehicular manslaughter. My entire life had been a lie built on my parents' decision to hide the truth. Rachel asked the obvious question. Where was Ethan now? Detective Finch's expression darkened. That's the other reason we called you. Ethan tried to kill himself in his cell last night. He's in the hospital now, critical condition. He left a note. She slid it across the table. The handwriting was shaky but legible. It was addressed to me. Brother, it started. I'm sorry. I wanted you to know what it felt like to be me, to be blamed for existing, to have everyone look at you like you're guilty of something you can't control. I wanted you to hurt, but now I realize I became the thing I hated most. I became someone who destroys innocent people. Gregory Brennan found me because I was looking for ways to hurt you. He gave me the opportunity, and I took it. I killed David Brennan. I drove that car. I broke his body and ran. And then I let you take the blame. The brother I spent my whole life searching for. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that finding you was the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. Best because I finally knew where I came from. Worst because I realized I didn't belong there. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you forget I existed. Your brother, Ethan. The note trembled in my hands. Detective Finch said Ethan had been on suicide watch but had hidden a razor blade. He'd cut deep, lost a lot of blood before guards found him. Touch and go whether he'd survive. I asked about Gregory Brennan. Still missing, she said, but they had warrants out and were tracking financial activity. He'd surface eventually. The charges against me were being dropped immediately. Full exoneration. Press conference scheduled for tomorrow. I walked out of the station in a daze. Rachel drove me home because I couldn't focus. My sister was waiting at my apartment. She'd heard everything from Gregory Vaughn. She hugged me, and I broke down. I had a brother, and he'd tried to destroy me because I'd accidentally ignored him. The cruelty of it was overwhelming. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept reading Ethan's note, trying to understand. My mother called in the morning. Detective Finch had contacted her about the DNA results. She was sobbing, apologizing, explaining why they'd never told me. The drugs, the shame, the fear of losing me too. My father had made her promise never to speak of it. He'd died taking the secret with him. She'd carried it alone for 30 years. I told her I needed time. I couldn't process her guilt when I was drowning in my own. The press conference was surreal. Denise Callahan publicly apologized for the wrongful prosecution, praised Rachel's investigative work, announced Gregory Brennan was wanted for conspiracy to commit murder, mentioned Ethan Cross's condition without revealing our relationship. That detail stayed sealed in the records. The media erupted with the story. Innocent man nearly convicted. Elaborate conspiracy. Twin brother involvement. My phone exploded with interview requests. I ignored all of them. 2 days later, Detective Finch called. Ethan had stabilized. He was going to survive, and he was asking to see me. I didn't know if I could face him. This person who shared my DNA, but had tried to destroy my life. Rachel said I didn't owe him anything. My sister said I should go for closure. Gregory Vaughn said it was my choice entirely. I went. The hospital room was sterile and white. Ethan lay in the bed, wrists bandaged, face pale. When I walked in, his eyes filled with tears. We looked exactly alike. It was like staring into a mirror that showed all my worst possibilities. He tried to speak but couldn't form words at first. Finally, he managed. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am." I sat in the chair beside his bed. "Why did you do it?" He closed his eyes. "Because I was angry. Because I felt abandoned my whole life, and then I found you, and you didn't respond, and it felt like being abandoned again. Because Gregory offered me money and revenge, and I was stupid enough to take both. Because I wanted you to feel what I felt. And now I realize I'm a monster." I asked him about our mother. Had he ever tried to find her? He had, years ago. She'd refused to meet him, said it was too painful. That had been the final rejection, the one that broke something inside him. I told him she'd lied to me my entire life about his existence. He looked at me then, really looked. "We're both victims," he said, "of choices other people made, of secrets and shame. I killed someone because of it. You almost went to prison because of it. We're both destroyed by the same lie." We talked for an hour, about our childhoods, his in foster care, mine with parents who loved me but lied to me, about the DNA test that had revealed the truth to him, about the emails I'd never seen, about how different one choice could have made everything. If I'd seen his message, if we'd met for coffee instead of him meeting Gregory, if our parents had kept us both, all the alternate paths we'd never walk. When I left, I didn't forgive him, but I understood him, and maybe that was more important. Ethan pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter, conspiracy, and fraud. His cooperation against Gregory and the suicide attempt factored into his sentencing. 15 years, eligible for parole in 10. David Brennan's wife attended the sentencing. She looked at Ethan and said she hoped he spent every day thinking about what he'd taken from her daughters. Ethan said he would. Gregory Brennan was caught 6 weeks later in Argentina. Extradition took months, but eventually he was brought back. His trial was quick. Overwhelming evidence. He got 35 years for conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, evidence fabrication, and fraud. No possibility of parole. At his sentencing, he showed no remorse, just complained about how David had always been the favorite son, how their parents had left everything to David, how unfair his life had been. The judge called him a disgrace to the concept of family. I rebuilt my life slowly. New job at a different company. Therapy twice a week to process the trauma and the revelation about Ethan. My relationship with my mother remained strained. She'd lied to me for 30 years. That wasn't something I could forgive quickly. But we talked every few weeks. Baby steps towards something resembling trust. Rachel and I stayed close. She'd saved my life in every way that mattered. Her business was thriving. She'd hired 3 new investigators and was turning away clients. 6 months after everything ended, I received a letter from Ethan. He was in prison, attending therapy, trying to understand why he'd done what he'd done. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Just wanted me to know he thought about David Brennan's daughters every day, about the man he'd killed and the brother he'd tried to destroy. He said he'd testify at any parole hearing I wanted to ensure I never had to see him again if that's what I needed. He said he understood if I never wanted contact, that the brother I could have had died the moment he agreed to Gregory's plan. I didn't respond to the letter, but I kept it. A year after the hit and run, I stood at David Brennan's grave for the first time. His widow had reached out months earlier, asking to meet. We'd had coffee. She'd cried. I'd cried. She said she didn't blame me, that I'd tried to save him, that I'd been victimized by the same evil that took her husband. We weren't friends, but we'd found a strange peace. I placed flowers on his grave. "I'm sorry," I said to the headstone. "Sorry I couldn't save you. Sorry your death became a weapon. Sorry my brother killed you because he was angry at me." The wind rustled through the cemetery. I stood there for a long time, thinking about all the choices that led to this moment. My parents choosing to hide the truth, Ethan choosing revenge, Gregory choosing murder, me choosing to stop and help, the only choice I didn't regret. 2 years later, I received another letter from Ethan. He'd been transferred to a different facility, one with better mental health resources. He'd completed addiction counseling, anger management, and trauma therapy. He wasn't asking for anything, just wanted me to know he'd found copies of his original emails to me in his old accounts. He'd reread them, seen how desperate and hopeful he'd sounded. He understood now that I'd never rejected him, that technology and timing had conspired against us, that his anger had been misdirected. He said he'd testified at Gregory's parole hearing the month before, ensuring he stayed in prison. He said he thought about me sometimes, wondered what kind of relationship we could have had in another life, brothers who grew up together, who had each other's backs, who didn't let secrets and lies destroy them. But that life didn't exist. This one did, and he had to live with that. I read the letter 3 times. Then I did something I hadn't expected. I wrote back, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. I told him I thought about him too, about the brother I never knew I had, about how DNA didn't mean family, but choices did, about how his choice to frame me destroyed any possibility of brotherhood, but also about how I understood the anger of abandonment, even if I couldn't excuse what he'd done. I told him I hoped his therapy helped, that he found some kind of peace, that David Brennan's memory haunted him enough to make him a better person, and I told him I wouldn't visit, wouldn't call, wouldn't build the relationship he'd destroyed before it began, but I wouldn't forget he existed, because pretending someone isn't there, I'd learned, was how all of this started. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too, so subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.